On the wedding day, looking at Ryan's impatient eyes and brows opposite me, I suddenly felt it was meaningless. The host asked me, "Bride, do you marry the groom?" I took off my veil and smiled. No, Ryan and I have been entangled for 12 years. How many 12 years are there in a lifetime? Ryan, as you wish, I return your freedom. After leaving such a sentence, I left without looking back. I checked into a hotel, turned off my phone, and just fell asleep. In my dream, it seemed as if I had returned to the year when I was 16. When I first met Ryan, he was a young boy who still had some immaturity. At that time, my parents died in a car accident and left a huge amount of compensation. Whoever could obtain my custody would have the right to supervise this sum of money. When true feelings meet real gold, which one will be more real? I don't know. I told my lawyer that I didn't need a guardian. Before I became an adult, let this sum of money stay safely. My grandma scolded me as an ungrateful person and said how good my uncle was to me. My aunt said why I was so heartless and couldn't help her a bit. I left with a cold face and dragged my suitcase. I transferred schools for myself and also rented a new house. I thought I would be very strong. But it wasn't until I had a fever and convulsed all over and forced myself to buy medicine that I experienced helplessness and loneliness for the first time. That day, in that narrow and dim corridor, I met Ryan. He walked against the light, like a salvation sent to me by God, and came straight towards me. I fainted in his arms. At 16, I was convinced that Ryan was the light that led me out of the darkness. For half a month after falling ill, it was Ryan who lived opposite who took care of me. His parents were also very kind to me after learning about my situation. At 16, after losing my parents and being deserted by everyone, I was fortunately warmed again. I tried hard to hold on to this warmth and make myself burn again. After recovering from illness, Ryan accompanied me for a walk. We sat on the lawn and enjoyed the sunlight. He quietly looked at me and said with a smile, "Serafina, I am your savior. You have to repay the favor of saving your life." The bright smile of the young man was deeply engraved in my mind from that moment. I smiled and asked him, then, "Savior, how do you want me to repay you?" He blushed but stammered for a long time without saying the following words. After transferring schools, Ryan and I became deskmates. He had excellent grades. He could answer all the questions I couldn't, and he always taught me gently and carefully until I really understood. Looking back on that time, my heart is still warm. I loved Ryan at that time. I believe that he loved me as much as I loved him. However, people change and love fades. The reason why people feel warm is because the cold is constantly reminding her. When I woke up from the uneasy dream, it was already the next afternoon. There were many unread messages on my phone. After a quick glance, most of them were sent by friends. "Serafina, you and Ryan have been together for so many years. Why did you call off the wedding just like that? It's such a pity, Serafina. You two are a couple that everyone envies. How could this happen?" I didn't have the energy to explain too much, especially when Ryan's call came. "Where are you?" Just 3 simple words, but I heard endless impatience. It was as if I were the party bee who had pestered him countless times. I remember he wasn't like this before. In the past, every word he said was full of tenderness. Just by saying my name, my heart would almost melt. When did he start to change? In a trance, his accusations were like a barrage of questions. "What do you mean? Serafina, where have I wronged you? Why did you make me look bad in front of so many relatives and friends? What are you doing again? There's nothing wrong. Who are you showing your face to? You've been like this for so many years. If I had known, I shouldn't have saved you." Yes, after so many years of feelings, there have also been many years of regret, right? But now, he still thinks that I'm just making a fuss and making trouble with him. I'll come back at night. Let's meet. We can regret and watch the bubble burst. However, I have to give an account for the past 12 years. He sneered. "I don't have time." The time for getting married was squeezed out. I said to wait a little longer. "It was you who insisted on choosing this time." After saying that, he didn't forget to add sarcastically, "You wanted to get married and I went along with you. What else are you not satisfied with? How cheap I am." After more than 10 years of feelings, in the end, I became the one who was desperately pressing. His reluctance was obvious, and I also lost the motivation to press. "Well, I know you're busy. So, this wedding doesn't need to happen. Save you some time." He lowered his voice and roared, "Serafina, do you think marriage is a joke? If we don't get married, don't mention marriage again in the future." In the future? How could there be a future for us? At this time, he still thought I was just making a fuss and using the future as an excuse to force me to compromise. Okay. He was stunned for a long time. When there was a sound, it was the beeping sound of hanging up. I smiled, but the corner of my mouth had the most bitter arc. No matter what happens between me and Ryan, after all, I grew up in the Song family. Aunt Song has always been very kind to me. Things have a beginning and an end. I have to give her an explanation. It was just lunchtime. We made an appointment at a nearby restaurant. When I arrived, Aunt Song was full of worry. At the moment she saw me, she still forced a smile. I felt a little uncomfortable, especially when I saw that the whole table was full of my favorite dishes. My nose was sour. Auntie. She urged me to sit down quickly and asked if I was okay. Of course not. But I still said yes. She didn't say much and just watched me eat quietly. I haven't eaten since yesterday. After eating a meal hungrily, when I looked up, there was the loving light of Aunt Song's face. She took my hand and looked me up and down. Suddenly, tears welled up in her eyes. Serafina, how did you become so thin? No matter what, remember to eat well. Such care is what I have been missing for many years and then regained. But I don't know how long I can still have it. I held back the choking feeling and said with a smile, Auntie, I have been eating well. Mother Song sighed and touched my face. Serafina, you and Ryan. How did you come to this point? At this moment, my tears burst out and the psychological defense I had forcibly built collapsed in an instant. Yes, how did we come to this point? Is it time? Or is the human heart prone to change? I didn't explain too much to Mother Song. At this point, there is not much significance in saying anything. Mother Song didn't say much either. She just asked me to think it over and not let myself down. In fact, between me and Ryan, it would be fine if everything went smoothly. But unfortunately, things don't always go as we wish. Father Song had a sudden heart attack. The expensive medical expenses put this ordinary family in jeopardy. The food, clothing and daily expenses of the family of 3 depend on Mother Song's work alone. Ryan is very competitive and has always been at the top of his class in grades. But on the night when the admission letter from the famous university we were admitted to together arrived, Mother Song cried while smiling. Child, you are competitive. Mom is sorry for you. Ryan sat on the sofa, lowered his head, and was full of gloom. When he looked up again, there was still a sensible but heartbreaking smile. It doesn't matter, Mom. I know Dad just had an operation and there is no money at home. I cannot go to college. I will go out to work and support you. He was very skilled at pretending to be calm and act as if nothing had happened, but his slightly red eyes hit my heart. On the balcony, in the night wind, the back of the young man was so thin. At that time, I remembered the night many years ago when he supported me in the night wind. I walked gently to his side and forced a relaxed smile. I am a little rich woman. Lifesaver, do you want me to repay you? He was stunned for a second, and his face darkened. Serafina, how could I use your money? Absolutely not. At that time, I didn't understand. Why are we unwilling to accept my help? That was our first quarrel, until the moon rose above the treetops, our lips trembled slightly in the cold air. I compromised. I only thought that he was carefully protecting his dignity. In fact, between his pride and me, he had already made a choice. However, he must go to college. I followed Ryan to do part-time jobs and make money. At first, he was a tutor. Because of his excellent college entrance examination results, there were still quite a few parents who were willing to hire him. Soon, he took on more and more jobs. Of course, some people would be jealous. After a child cried and falsely accused him of child abuse, no one was willing to hire him anymore. The frustrated young man clenched the teaching plan in his hand, and the whole world seemed to have excluded him. I patted him on the shoulder. It's okay. Let's deliver takeout together? If it really doesn't work, we can even distribute flyers. He hugged me in his arms. The faint jasmine fragrance had disappeared for a long time, but I still remember it until now. Sorry, Serafina. I will cherish you well and compensate you in the future. Throughout the summer, the merciless scorching sun and the sweat on my head didn't make me feel too sad. On the contrary, in that summer, the future that the young man promised me made me firmly believe. At that time, we never thought that such sincere and passionate love would eventually disappear in the long river of time. I wandered alone on the street, aimlessly and meaninglessly. My phone kept vibrating. When I opened it, it turned out that alumni in the campus group were discussing the matter between me and Ryan. There were many discussions, but the meaning was almost the same. What happened between me and Ryan? this golden boy and jade girl. Since I was also in the group, everyone's speculations couldn't be too excessive. But what I didn't expect was that the senior sister directly messaged Ryan and said, "Some men are just good for nothings. It's bad enough that they are useless. They still won't allow others to be stronger than them." In an instant, the group was silent. Clearly it was a virtual online world, but I could feel the embarrassing chill. Ryan would certainly not reply to the senior sister, and the alumni group was silent again. I casually bought a cup of milk tea. There were many people on the street, but I seemed to hear no sound. After being hungry for a long time, I was even weak when eating and drinking tea. When the phone vibrated again, someone in the group messaged the senior sister. Vicky first sent a sweating and squinting expression, and then a long string of text appeared. "Senior sister, did you misunderstand something? You don't understand Ryan at all. Are you being a bit too one-sided in saying this? Did someone tell you something?" The senior sister's reply was also very quick. "Oh, I thought who it was. Isn't this the famous green tea sister who knows that others have girlfriends and still pesters them? Vicky, don't think that everyone is Ryan. I don't know what's on your mind. You love acting. I will build a stage for you tomorrow." The senior sister was not polite at all in speaking. But I think it suits Vicky's behavior. Looking at the somewhat dazzling light even on a cloudy day, I lowered my head. Coincidentally, the milk tea I just bought was also green tea flavored. I smiled, and tears seeped from the corners of my eyes. When did Vicky appear between me and Ryan? Father Song's condition kept recurring and he usually maintained it by taking medicine. During that time, Mother Song fell ill and the family's economic conditions declined again. After Father Song stopped taking medicine for a while, his old illness finally recurred and he was sent to the emergency room. The doctor said that a second operation was needed. For the Song family, this was a considerable expense. Without hesitation, I paid the operation fee. The doctor announced the successful operation while sweating at the door of the ward. Ryan, who had been hanging his head all along, suddenly raised his head, and there was a strange light in his eyes. He stared at me and spoke slowly but forcefully. "Serafina, thank you. Really, thank you." I smiled and gently hugged him. "We are family. Don't be so polite." His arms tightened as if he wanted to blend me into his body. I don't know how long it had passed. When he had the strength to enter the ward, my shoulder was already wet for a large area. I thought, "Ryan, you are really worthy. You are worthy of my kindness to you." Later, in Father Song's ward, I saw Vicky for the first time. She wore a fluffy bun and had two deep dimples when she smiled. She put fruits and milk on the table and asked Father Song affectionately, "Uncle, are you feeling better?" Father Song was confused. Ryan introduced, "This is Vicky, a junior who is doing research topics with me." Mother Song frowned and sized up Vicky without leaving a trace. The belatedly aware Vicky quickly ran to Mother Song's side. Still with that pure, sweet and enthusiastic smile, "Hello, Auntie. By the way, I brought soup cooked by my mother for Uncle. It nourishes patience." Ryan also smiled. "Yes, Auntie is good at cooking." Vicky's gaze shifted to Ryan, and a kind of blazing and blatant affection was about to burst out. "She likes Ryan. I can feel it. And it's the kind of liking that she must have." Vicky stayed in the ward for more than 20 minutes and then left after saying goodbye. I went out to ask the doctor about Dad Song's condition. When I came back, I just heard Mom Song warning Ryan, "Ryan, what's going on between you and that girl?" Ryan might have been stunned for a second and then denied, "What could be going on? Mom, don't think too much. We have nothing going on. We're just ordinary friends." Mom Song breathed a sigh of relief. "That's good. Ryan, you mustn't let Serafina down." Ryan's tone was very sincere, at least at that moment. "Don't worry, I won't." So, I wasn't very guarded against Vicky's appearance. I believe that our relationship won't be disrupted by a third party, but I didn't expect Vicky to appear so frequently. Ryan, who never used to be fond of playing with his phone, started chatting on WeChat frequently. Sometimes, he would stare at the phone screen and giggle. When I finished my work and leaned against him with a smile and asked what was so funny, he would shudder all over and suddenly turn off the phone screen and say stiffly, "Nothing." Someone sent me a funny emoji. I know my behavior is a bit shameful, but I really can't stand the feeling of suspicion and torment. On the night when he was fast asleep, I looked at his WeChat chats. Sure enough, it was with Vicky. "Senior, good morning. There can't be a lazybones who hasn't gotten up yet at this time, right? Get up quickly. I'm going to play in the park with my classmates today. I'll send you some beautiful photos later." I think you're the lazybones. That afternoon when we went camping and said we would climb the mountain, who slept for 3 hours next to me and couldn't be woken up even with wheat straw? He doesn't even have time to kiss me in the morning, but he can exchange good mornings with another girl. They are sharing their daily lives with each other almost all the time. In his phone album, there are also several photos of Vicky in the park. Although their words are not too excessive, after seeing that part, I felt ice cold all over. Senior, I really want to eat green pepper steak. Didn't you say you're very good at making this dish last time? You're so amazing. I don't know how to make it at all. Ryan sent a smug expression, and Vicky also replied with a pitiful expression. Can I have green pepper steak tomorrow noon? Sure. I'll make a big portion for you. Don't make your stomach hurt then. Vicky sent a simple and honest smile. It doesn't matter if it hurts. Last time I sprained my ankle, wasn't it you who sent me to the hospital? Ryan sent an expression of a troublesome person. After reading these, I put down his phone and looked at the sleeping face beside me. It was still the same as before, but it also seemed different. Since when did the things he should have done with me be replaced by another girl? I thought that the green pepper steak that should have belonged only to me was finally sent to another girl. That boy who should have belonged to me doesn't seem so pure as before. I couldn't sleep and tossed and turned. I didn't even know if I should ask him if there was a place for him in the restaurant I booked for my birthday tomorrow. Sure enough, he didn't come. He seemed to have forgotten that when he was delivering food to another girl, there was a girl who was looking forward to his figure on her birthday. It wasn't until I called him in the evening that he suddenly realized and apologized. I'm sorry, Serafina. I'm too busy. I forgot recently. Don't worry, I'll make it up to you. He said he wouldn't be able to come back until midnight. There was a pile of data to analyze today. I said okay and hung up. I took the food I had made and went to school. Just as I entered the school gate, it started pouring rain. I was all wet and shivering with cold. My vision became blurred in the rain, but I could still see clearly that the young man who had once given me warmth gave his shoulder, which he had promised to give me a sense of security, to Vicky. He was carrying Vicky on his back, carefully and with a solemn expression, crossing a low-lying area. Vicky was giggling on his shoulder. He took out one hand and held an umbrella. The rain dripped down along the umbrella. When he looked back, his eyes were full of care. The two looked at each other and smiled sweetly. I dialed Ryan's phone. I saw him take it out of his pocket, but then Vicky snatched it away and hung up. The phone fell to the ground along with the food I had made. I began to question our 12-year relationship. It seemed that it wasn't as indestructible as I had imagined. It was more like it was full of flaws. I remember that the rain that night was very heavy, so heavy that I still remember the coldness like an ice cellar. Just like now, it's drizzling again in the sky. I can't help but smile bitterly. God is still unfair to me. Why does God always give me a heavy blow when I'm sad? I threw away the milk tea and turned around. A car stopped beside me. Ryan opened the door and held a card in his hand. Within full of anger, he threw the card at my feet. Serafina, is this the card you gave my mom? What do you mean, breakup fee? I glanced at it. It was indeed the one I had given Mom's song just now. I nodded. Before I could say a word, Ryan suddenly grabbed my wrist. Do you think money can solve all problems? Once upon a time, I was his Serafina. Now I'm just Serafina who is called by name like everyone else. Our 12 years seem to have changed nothing, but in fact, everything has long been completely different. But undeniably, he is still that Ryan, the Ryan I loved. No matter what lies ahead for us, I hope this relationship will always be beautiful in my heart. So, I explained, Auntie has been better to me than a biological daughter these years. This is my filial piety to Auntie. He sneered, shook his head, and was full of disdain. That's my mom. I will take care of her myself. I don't need you. That's great. I nodded. Then consider it a breakup fee. He was so angry that his face was flushed and his eyes were full of coldness. Serafina, what on earth do you want? My patience is limited. I took a deep breath and looked up at the sky. The raindrops hit my forehead, painful and cold, but it made me a lot more awake. At least, I don't want to get caught in the rain again in the future. Let's break up. My heart hurts, but the heavy feeling in my legs seems to have eased. Ryan, 12 years of relationship is now a burden to you. We are both tired. I am willing to give you the freedom you want. The fierce red in his eyes faded, leaving only confusion. He was stunned for a long time. Finally, he stared into my eyes as if seeking confirmation. Are you serious? I looked at him and nodded. His expression stiffened, and the corners of his mouth trembled at an imperceptible angle. Serafina, what exactly do you want? There can be a farce at the ceremony, but don't challenge my bottom line again and again. I sneered and asked him, bottom line? Ryan, what's your bottom line? I asked him seriously. I stared at his eyes intently, delusionally hoping to see the answer I wanted from them. My bottom line? Serafina, don't you know my bottom line? Yes, I know. When I was young, I might not have thought deeply about it. But when I graduated, I realized it for the first time. Perhaps for Ryan, it's okay for him to accept that I'm excellent. But it's very difficult for me to be more excellent than him. After graduation, my choice was different from Ryan's. He wanted to stay at our school and continue to study for a graduate degree, but his family situation was not good. So I discussed with him. Otherwise, I would go out and work. At that time, he held my hand tightly and said resolutely, no. If anyone should work, it should be me. You just study well. He looked at me and smiled again. Moreover, it's not easy to find a job now. I'm afraid you won't be able to find one. I didn't think much of it at that time. But now when I think about it, isn't that kind of look in his eyes exactly a kind of inexplicable belittlement? I'll give it a try. If I can't find one, I'll come back and take the postgraduate entrance exam. Don't worry about me. I thought my comfort was a kind of consideration for him. But he seemed to think I was stubborn. Frowning, he stood up. Serafina, why don't you always listen to me? I said you won't be able to find one, so you won't be able to find one. Actually, from that time on, I felt that his personality was a bit strange. For many things, I was always motivated by the intention of being good for him, but in the end, I seemed to become the one who made a mistake. That night, we argued for a long time. Neither of us would give in. In the end, we had a big fight. Then he smashed the teacup I gave him and stormed out. Looking at the fragments on the ground, in the mess, I felt as if my heart had been cut by a small knife. I was very afraid of the feeling of loss. I had lost the most important thing before. I didn't want to endure pain again. I couldn't breathe, but still chased after him with trembling legs. At that time, my eyes were full of the back of that young man. I didn't notice a car coming at high speed on the road and knocking me over. In the chaos, the last scene I saw before I fainted was still the young man's eyebrows and eyes. When I woke up again, Ryan was standing by my bedside, staring at me. For the first time, the young man's eyes were red. Serafina, you finally woke up. I'm sorry. I'm really sorry. He held my right hand tightly. The distinct knuckles of his fingers turned white. His face was filled with overwhelming guilt. At that moment, I suddenly felt that the teacup was not important anymore. The young man was still in front of me. Everything could be bought again. I smiled, pulling at the gauze. It was a bit ugly. It doesn't matter. He hugged me. Let's not quarrel anymore, okay? Serafina, you really don't know how worried I am about you. At that time, in waves of warmth, I had a stupid thought. If Ryan and I could be harmonious and happy all our lives, then I would be willing to be hit by a car every day. He said many sorries. And in fact, I didn't blame him at all. There was another person in the room, a short-haired young lady. She looked capable and neat. When she spoke, every word was clear. Sorry. Let me make a simple self-introduction. I'm Young. It was me who accidentally hit you. We were both interested in machinery. She invited me to start a business with her. Regarding the development prospects and directions, she presented a flawless plan. I was very tempted. I told Ryan. He said with a smile, start a business? This is not a simple thing. But because of my hospitalization, he didn't quarrel with me again. When I started a business with Young, he said more than once that you are just making a fuss. You won't be able to last long. I didn't take it to heart. Young had a profound understanding of the market, and I was also relatively excellent in terms of action. The days of starting a business were not as smooth as we imagined. Sometimes, we stayed up for 2 days just to revise one page of the plan. Fortunately, heaven rewards the diligent. We gradually got better. Until now, our business is getting better and better. We also have a place in City A. Ryan didn't pour cold water on me anymore. But now when I think about it, it seems that it was from that time on that we talked less and less. Leaving silently has replaced the good morning kiss without anyone noticing. Green pepper steak has long turned into the leftover food he casually brought back. Even when we were lying on the bed at night, he would always turn his back to me. He said, I have a lot of academic inquiries recently. I'm a bit busy. I was also very busy at that time. So busy that I didn't have time to care about these things. So busy that I didn't notice that the young man beside me was drifting away. But if I become mediocre, will Ryan really come back to me and be wholeheartedly with me? I don't dare to bet that I used to love him very much. But I always consider the worst result. If I take his love as the meaning of life, then if he doesn't love me anymore, do I have to die? I can't do it. Ryan, it doesn't matter anymore. I don't care about you anymore. So your bottom line, your male ego, I don't want to take care of it anymore, Serafina, it's been 12 years. Everyone knows that we can't be separated. What are you making a fuss about? Do you think this is necessary? You will only make me hate you more. Listen, hate? Why would someone want to spend a lifetime with a person they hate? Does Vicky know? Who? Ryan was stunned. Why are you mentioning her? What does it have to do with her? Everyone knows that we can't be separated. So, does Vicky know? Ryan seemed to have been stepped on a sore spot. Serafina, don't drag in irrelevant people. You want to break up? Fine. Just don't regret it. I shook my head, my voice faint. No. After being together for so many years, you should know what kind of person I am. I never regret what I do. He got into the car, slammed the door hard, and drove away. Mud splashed all over me. Look, the person I love doesn't even have the courage to admit that he was being unfaithful in love. It really should have been thrown away earlier. I moved away and bought a medium-sized house. The surroundings were very quiet. After my senior learned about what happened to us, she proposed to bring her friends over to warm my new house. Afraid that I would be sad and do something extreme, she also brought some drinks. I cooked a few dishes. We sat around the dining table. At first, no one brought up the matter about me and Ryan. But later, they gradually found that after ending this 12-year relationship, I was not as sad as they had imagined. Yes, I myself didn't expect that after losing Ryan, I would only feel a dull pain when thinking of him in a few lonely moments occasionally. After all, I have long understood that life is lived for oneself, and my life is not just about Ryan. Curiosity is unstoppable. A few classmates couldn't help but ask me, why did you break up with Ryan? I remember your relationship was very good. My answer is very simple and precise, probably because we don't love each other anymore. We are both tired. The atmosphere fell silent, and everyone's expressions were inscrutable. But that's indeed the case. Love is not unbridled, it is also a kind of responsibility. In love, we may get tired, but we can't be fickle-minded. The person who is half-hearted in love is not the future I want. With the company of my classmates, my mood is indeed much better than before. Plus, I am extremely busy with business matters. Soon, I get used to living alone, but Ryan doesn't seem to be used to it. He appears at my doorstep, with sunken eye sockets and a few stubbles. Even his figure has become much thinner. I am a little surprised. After all, in my impression, Ryan is always high-spirited. I have never seen him in such a decadent state. He smiles at me, a bright and beautiful smile, but there are always a few impurities in it, which makes me feel very uncomfortable. I feel that he is destroying the beautiful things in my memory. Serafina, I am free recently. Otherwise, let's pick a day and book a restaurant again to hold a wedding? Don't worry. For the last incident, I have already explained it to your relatives and friends. They won't say anything. His tone is a bit pleading, and my chest is very uncomfortable, but I know that we can never go back. Just like now, even if he softly calls me Serafina now, I will still remember the time when he shouted Serafina with bloodshot eyes and gritted teeth. No need, Ryan. I have already set you free. Our past was beautiful. Let's keep the beauty in our memories. No one is indispensable to anyone else. Isn't it good to welcome our respective futures together? His eyes are red, and he says softly, Serafina, what's wrong? What's wrong between us? Why has it become like this? Yes, why? This should be asked of yourself, Ryan. Go away. He holds my hand and shakes his head. I won't go, Serafina. Have you forgotten our past? We agreed to buy a big villa, have 2 children, and live a happy life. The original agreement was indeed very beautiful, but someone took the lead in breaking the balance between us. I am not as strong as I seem. Honestly, I still have some emotional cleanliness. Once I smell something that doesn't belong to me from some people or things, I will erase my mark. Yes, I bought a villa. I also treated your parents well. I fulfilled the agreement. But what about you? He is stunned and speechless. I stare into his eyes. Do you still love me? Of course I love you. I sneer. But do you only love me? He hesitates and is guilty and doesn't answer. But the answer is already obvious, isn't it? I sigh. Ryan, I don't want to make it too ugly between us. I loved you very much once. I believe you also loved me. But now, let go. He leaves with his head down. The teenager's back is still thin, but I no longer have the original passion. I can't warm him. Ryan's mother calls me and invites me to have a meal at their house. Coincidentally, I have lived in their house for many years, and there are still some things I haven't taken away. When I arrive, in addition to their family of 3, there are also many close relatives. At the dinner table, relatives act as mediators one after another, saying one word after another. Serafina, child. Since you were little, Uncle has always thought you are good. Now you have grown up gracefully and have a good job. It's time to think about your life's major events properly, right? Yes, Aunt remembers that your relationship with Ryan has always been very good. Ryan has said about the last incident that it was his fault. As women, all we want in this life is a good home. Don't be too fussy with men. No matter how good your job is, it's not as good as finding a good husband. Ryan is also an excellent child. You have been together for more than 10 years. How can you break up just like that? At such an age, don't be so naive anymore, okay? Ryan's mother also holds my hand and sighs as she says, all the mistakes are Ryan's fault. Child, if you are unhappy about something, vent it on him. He won't dare to say anything. It's just that Auntie feels sorry for you. I know that Ryan still loves you. Human nature is indeed profit-seeking and harm-avoiding. No matter how she treats me like her own daughter, after all, she is Ryan's mother. As for what those relatives of the Song family said, what does it have to do with me? I have made up my mind to cut it off completely. I smile, pick up my wine glass, and toast one by one. Thank you all for your care over the years. You may not know much about my and Ryan's affairs. I am no longer a child and have my own judgment on things. In a while, I will go to work in another place. Please take care of yourselves. The relatives look at each other and feel a little embarrassed. Aunt frowns at me, clears her throat, and says, why are you so stubborn, child? Ryan has been with you since he was a teenager. You have delayed him for so many years. Now that you are prosperous, you don't want our Ryan anymore. Who can you reason with? Second uncle also echoes, yes, Ryan saved your life once. How can you be so ungrateful? I sneer and look at Ryan. Ryan also looks at me and sighs. Serafina, are you really willing to give up this 12-year relationship? I smile and raise my eyebrows as I look at Aunt. Falling in love is a matter between two people, isn't it? At the beginning, when we were together, if he didn't want to, I couldn't hold a knife to his neck and force him to be with me, right? In these 10 years, it's Ryan who is delayed. Isn't it me who is also delayed? You are also a woman. Why do you think a woman's youth is less valuable than a man's? Also, I am prosperous now, but that is also through my own efforts. Ask Ryan if he has contributed even a little. Aunt's face turns green, and she can't say a word with red ears. I turn to look at second uncle and frown. Yes, Ryan once saved my life, but I also saved Uncle Song. Even one's own biological parents who gave life to a child can't ask the child to use his whole life to repay the kindness, right? I am filial to uncle and aunt and have been with Ryan for so many years, considering everything for him. I have a clear conscience. Second uncle's face is no better than aunt's. Finally, I look at Ryan coldly. Ryan, before asking me if I can give up this relationship of more than 10 years, ask yourself first. Wasn't it you who abandoned me first? His eyes start to dodge. When I was buying a house, you said you had a project. When I was decorating, you said you had an academic conference. When I was buying furniture, you were still very busy. Do you know that it was our agreement, not just my own? When everything was completed, you took a quick look and sarcastically said, Serafina, you are really rich. Ryan flushed red. I asked him, don't you remember? Ryan shook his head and hurriedly explained, no, I was just making a remark. I stood up and questioned him, what were you doing on my birthday? What were you doing when I set the wedding date? And what were you doing when I went to pick out wedding supplies? Ryan's eyes darted left and right, but he couldn't say a word. I took out the photos with a sneer. Let me tell you. The first one, Vicky was sitting beside him, holding a lunchbox in her hand. He was holding chopsticks and feeding her green pepper steak. On my birthday, you made my favorite green pepper steak and fed it to another girl. The second one, Vicky was holding his arm, looking up at him with an admiring look on her face. The day you were supposed to attend an academic conference when we set the wedding date, you spent a wonderful time with Vicky in the suburban park. The third one, Vicky and he were hugging each other. The two of them closed their eyes and smiled happily. When I went to pick out wedding supplies, you left your fiancé and went to the amusement park with another girl. If I remember correctly, she kissed you on the Ferris wheel, and you didn't refuse. The relatives didn't dare to speak. Mother Song and Father Song stared at Ryan angrily. I also looked at him. Ryan, is this what you call loving me? He was extremely embarrassed but still insisted, you actually checked up on me? Check up? I sneered. I was so busy at that time. No one shared the burden for me. How could I have time to check up on you? These are photos from Vicky's moments. Where you went and what you did are clearly written by her. Why did Vicky do this? It's simple. To let me know. But Ryan also can't resist the temptation. As the saying goes, flies don't bite seamless eggs. Ryan opened his mouth and finally only uttered a simple syllable, ah. I shook my head. Ryan, at first I wanted to leave you some dignity. It's not because I still love you. I just don't want the beautiful memories in my memory to be tainted. What I cherish is not you, but my 12 years of feelings. Ryan was at a loss. Finally, he said dryly, Serafina, listen to my explanation. I have no other intentions towards you. I waved my hand to interrupt him, okay, there's no need to say more. It's not necessary and not important. That's it. I turned back to get my bag and suddenly heard a crisp sound. Looking back, there was a slap mark on Ryan's face. Mother Song was furious. How could you treat Serafina like this? I raised you so painstakingly. How could I raise such an unfaithful, unrighteous, and shameless beast? It could be seen that Mother Song was really angry. Ryan lowered his head and didn't dare to say a word. Mother Song scolded for a long time. Finally, she turned back, crying and holding my hand. Serafina, don't be like this. He was wrong. He was really wrong. If he wasn't my own son, I really want to beat him to death. I hugged Mother Song. It has already happened, Auntie. It has nothing to do with you. Mother Song wiped her tears and stared at me. Child, forgive Ryan. You have helped our family a lot. I really don't want to hurt you like this. Stay. I promise that Ryan will definitely be good to you in the future. She glared at Ryan. He also hurried over to apologize. I pushed him away. Auntie, it's impossible between me and Ryan. Thank you for your care over the years. If there's anything I can help with in the future, just call me. I won't change my number. After saying that, I went to pack my things. Ryan chased after me to my room, holding my arm, full of repentance. Serafina, I know I was wrong. Don't leave me. I promise you that I will never do this again. I don't like Vicky. Do you believe me? After saying that, he took out his phone and deleted Vicky's WeChat in front of me and blacklisted her phone number as well. He said sincerely, I only love you, from 16 years old till now. In fact, based on my relationship with Ryan for more than 10 years, he may not really like Vicky. But does he really not see what Vicky is doing? Doesn't he know that his ambiguous relationship with Vicky is a kind of harm to me? He knows. He indulges in Vicky's admiration to maintain his sick self-esteem. From the moment he chose ambiguous relationships, all his subsequent awakenings will be worthless to me. His indulgence, his momentary distraction, and his knowing that it will hurt me but still doing it. Between us, there is no going back. Forget it, Ryan. As I said, I don't regret what I do, and I won't take back what I said. After packing up, I said goodbye to Aunt Song. Most of the relatives had left. In the empty living room, Aunt Song was sobbing and almost knelt down. Fortunately, I supported her. Child, without you, your uncle would have died long ago. Our family wouldn't have such a good life. It's all Ryan's fault. Please forgive our Ryan. Just do it as Auntie begs you. I wiped away her tears and said gently, Auntie, neither you nor the Song family owes me anything. The warmth you once gave me, I will never forget in my life. I left the Song family with my things. With the sound of the door closing, my tears also fell. From now on, Serafina, you are alone again. I moved to another city and quickly got used to the new life. My senior often contacted me and sometimes made fun of me. Oh, Serafina. You are really pitiful. You have nothing but money. But besides these, she also told me many other things. After breaking up with me, Ryan didn't get together with Vicky either. Ryan got angry with Vicky and said many heartless words. Vicky also gave up, and Vicky seems to have some psychological disorder. She doesn't like decent boys. She prefers married men. She fell in love with another senior who is studying for a graduate degree. Unfortunately, this senior is already married. She may have found confidence from Ryan. Using the same trick again, she pestered people to chat and asked them out to play all day. But the senior's wife is not someone to be trifled with. All her seductive photos and suggestive words were printed out by the senior's wife and pasted in Vicky's neighborhood. The senior's wife also pulled up a banner and played a loudspeaker nonstop for 8 hours during the day. Unit 1, 3rd floor, 2 to 3, Jo Young and his wife are good at teaching their daughter. Their daughter Vicky fell in love at first sight with my husband and pursued him relentlessly. I am willing to bless the two and automatically step aside. Vicky's father slapped Vicky hard in front of the neighbors. These things spread widely. Vicky dropped out of school automatically. It is said that the whole family has moved. No one knows where they have gone. 12 years of affection is not simply black and white. There is beauty, and there is also pain. As for the bright young man I loved, he has already left me. I will still move towards the light, forward and further forward. Even if I am alone. As for Ryan, even though I deliberately avoid his news, I still know many years later. He is still alone until now, but what's the use? Late affection is cheaper than grass, and 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 is cheaper than grass.